everyone, this is Georgia, the Genealogy Queen, coming to you from Salt Lake City, Utah. This week we're going to actually back up and we're going to start saying, how do you get started in family history, right? So for people that are interested in their family history but don't know where to begin, it seems kind of overwhelming, or you know, hear the horror stories of people that take years and years of research and get a little bit overwhelmed at the whole process, or maybe there's just, you know, some trauma or some information within the family that it's really painful to discuss. So how do we get started? So today we're going to talk about 3 main things that you can do this week to get started. And then we'll continue on this series in the midst of my other videos and walk you through the process and learning how to do family history. So let's get started, right? So the first thing you want to do is gather what you have and gather what you know. So a lot of times we say, well, I don't know anything. But if we start looking around the house, or we start going like to our parents' house or aunt or uncle, etc., we'll find that we actually have a lot more information than we thought. So what you want to do is go ahead and grab those photos, grab any of your own personal documents, and then asking around your parents, again, aunt, uncle, etc., for any documents that you or information that you might have, or even just oral stories or information about where people were born, about what year, what their full names are. So basically what you're looking for is things that will give you information on their names, their birth dates, marriage dates, death dates, and locations of those things. And then what you're going to do is talk to your relatives, right? So anyone that you can interact with, as far as I say, the older generations, the better, unless you know that there's someone in the family that's really interested in family history and has already been working on it. But I like to look at grandparents, great aunts, great uncles, even your aunts and uncles, and people that have those family stories. Now, initially, most people will say, well, I don't really know that much, or I don't really know anything about that. However, if you kind of craft those questions a little bit differently, if you say, well, tell me everything you know, they're like, well, I don't know that much, right? But if you start crafting those questions more specifically, and or if you bring your photo album out and say, hey, can we just go through some old pictures? Inevitably, those pictures will spark those stories and those memories and those conversations. And so that's actually how I got started, was going over to my grandmother's house when I was 10 years old and going through the photo albums with her. And for someone who was struggling with her memory, we knew that that was going to be really important to capture as much as we could. And it was amazing, the information that we were able to gather from those conversations. So reach out to your family members, talk with your relatives, see what they know. Write down any little tidbits of information, even things that may not seem relevant or important right now. Go ahead and jot those down. They might come in handy later. And so then that's the first week, right? So this week, that's your assignment, is to go out and gather what you know about yourself and your parents and grandparents, as much as you have. I understand there's situations where you may be adopted and you're looking for your birth family, or there might be other situations where, one of the parents weren't in the picture and they're not able to have those conversations with you, or they've already passed. Go ahead and dig through what you have. Come up with the best amount of what you have. And we'll just go from there, right? And then lastly, I'm going to touch upon this a lot more in the next video, but we want to say, well, where are you going to enter all this information in? Now, there are a lot of different websites out there to house your family tree and to gather and to put all of that into one place. There's a couple that I like to start with. It's not necessarily where you'll end up, but I think for 90% of people it works, right? So 2 websites that I like to go to are Ancestry.com and FamilySearch.org. Those are the 2 that I like to start with. I don't have anything against the other ones, and I use all of them, so I'm not trying to discount anything. But those are the 2 main ones, especially for people in the United States. So here's the pros and cons of each of those. So Family Search is absolutely free. It doesn't cost anything to sign up to enter in your tree or access to the billions of records that they have. So that is a big positive feature, right? There are also a lot of people there that are collaborating and helpful. They have great algorithms on creating hints of documents and information for you once you've entered some information in. And so that's just a really great way to do that. One of the things that people, I think, are having a hard time understanding, and I get a lot of questions and a lot of comments on social media, even in frustration, is that Family Search is really one world tree. And so when you're creating your tree, you're really creating your branches of that one world tree. So that does mean it's an open public tree. It means that anybody could technically go in and make changes to your tree, to your section of the tree, right? And so that can be extremely helpful if people have documents and photos and information on your family that maybe you didn't have. If they also are connecting into that, like distant cousins, it's really easy to work collaboratively that way. So that can be really helpful. On the other hand, sometimes people can add or make changes to the tree that you did not want or intend. Now, I'll go into detail on how to resolve those issues and or reverse them if you disagree with what's been done. But people can make changes to it. And so for some people, that's really hard, especially if they've been putting in several years of research into their tree, and they get, aggravated that someone comes in and merges somebody or deletes somebody or does something, right? And so that is a potential negative, but again, there are really great ways to work around that to minimize that being a negative experience. So FamilySearch.org is a great tool and a great way to get started, especially if you're not sure how much you want to monetarily invest. Having said that, the next one is Ancestry.com, which most people are familiar with. However, I just find it to be a really great platform. It does have a lot of the similar and same documents and records that are available on Family Search. It does also have its own set of data that is separate or different. It does allow you to also collaborate via messaging and email to each other. It also allows you to have your own specific tree, and you can actually make several different ones. And so we can, again, get into that in more detail later, but you have your own tree that you develop there that no one else can have access to unless you allow it. And so no changes are made on that unless you do it. There is some less collaboration, and they do also have algorithms that allow hints, and some of them are great and some of them are not. And so again, not dissing on any particular website, just letting you know what the pros and cons are of each one. And so with that, when you do come across those hints, you can't automatically assume they're correct. For example, if you have, in my case, 3 Johann Hinskys that were born in the same year in the same church and their parents are named the same, those hints are going to come up wrong, right? So they're going to throw all those hints at you, and it's still up to you to read that hint, compare it to the data and the knowledge and what you have, and make the determination for yourself. So sometimes those will be wrong, and it's not their fault. It's because it's so similar of information to what you've put in. The computer is going to say this is a potential hint. So that's why they say it's a hint and not an actual fact, right? So you do have to still do the work to review those and make sure that those are correct. And we'll kind of go through how you do that and how you make the determination whether that's a viable hint that you should add or not. But so those are the areas that I just wanted to discuss today, right? So gather what you know and gather the information in the documents, talk to your relatives, set up times where you can either Zoom or Skype or phone call or whatever, or meet in person, which is ideal, right? And have those conversations. And then thirdly, pick a program to get started entering in your tree. The other comment I'm going to make on that too is eventually most people that really get into family history find themselves wanting to take a DNA test, and I'll have a whole series on DNA tests and who to go with and where to go. But again, Ancestry has a great DNA test, a great database with millions of people on it, and you can link those DNA results right into your tree. And you can also download that raw data and put it into other websites' DNA areas for free or for nominal fee. And so it gives you your biggest bang for your buck, and being able to go across various websites and platforms. So, so all of that being said, I lean towards Ancestry.com. However, if you really are strapped for cash and you want more collaborative effort, FamilySearch.org I am also on, and it is an amazing website. So those are the two that I would recommend to get started with. You can go ahead and choose one, and let's get started. We'll see you next week, and we'll talk about what are the next steps. Have a great week. Happy hunting.